Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
Let's go. Missed this intro. Hello, everyone. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican Pistolero, coming to you live from the Puerto Rican Pistolero studios here in beautiful Miami, Florida. Happy Sunday. God bless all of you. I hope you are doing well. I am back in South Florida for the next pretty much 2 weeks, I guess, as far as the show is concerned. And it's nice to be here. I do miss Greg the Goblin dropping the 20. What the heck? Right away, doesn't even let me start the intro. He's just dropping it in here. Thank you, Greg the Goblin. I appreciate you as always supporting the show for, it's been years now, hasn't it? It's crazy how much time has gone on, how many things have gone on since you guys have started watching me here on YouTube, and I appreciate all of you that have stuck around for so many years, and thank you once again, Greg. I am back in Miami for the time being. I will be going back to Puerto Rico on a, I guess it's on a semi-permanent basis at this point. So taking care of some things here on the mainland, as we say, and then I will be heading back to support the cats back on the island. I miss them a lot, but they're being well taken care of by their grandmother. And then we'll flip roles here, and I'll be there and set up the studio over there. It's been an interesting week, hasn't it? It seems like every week there is political intrigue. There are stories that are coming out that we would never expect. I always start the show prep and saving articles throughout the week, but then things get blown up, things change. And this episode will be, I call it a little bit of going back, I guess, to my roots. Originally, when I started doing YouTube many years ago, it was always about the Second Amendment and spreading the word about our rights, the Constitution, and trying to spread the good word about self-defense and personal responsibility, while using my my passion for pop culture and video games as kind of a Trojan horse or a catalyst to spread that message and show that gun owners aren't just, redneck dudes living up in the mountains of Appalachia is so unfairly stereotyped for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with those folks either. They're the salt of the earth, right? So we will be going back and going through some 2A stories today. We will talk a little bit about pop culture and go on a little bit of a retrospective on Star Wars Episode 3. Since the 20th anniversary of that is occurring this week, it's back in theaters. I've not had the chance to watch it. I've actually been going back and watching a lot of movies that I've never seen before or were classics for me. This weekend, I watched Tombstone twice, which, believe it or not, as a gun guy, I'd never watched Tombstone before, which is pretty blasphemous. So I am your Huckleberry today. So I watched that this weekend. I watched it with the old man Pistolero a couple of hours ago. I watched Dark City a couple of weeks ago. I watched, what else did I watch? Big Trouble in Little China. Maybe I'm just on a Kurt Russell spree. I'm going to have to watch Escape from New York and Escape from LA, which I've seen them in the past, and go down that path. And if you're a Puerto Rico aficionado, then if you want to go on Kurt Russell's more comedic side, I recommend checking out Captain Ron, which is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It's not that well known. Martin Short is in it as well. It's a fantastic movie about this family that inherits a sailboat and is trying to navigate it through the Caribbean, and they hire this Navy veteran played by Kurt Russell. His name is Captain Ron, and he's a bit of a legend. And he seems like an idiot and he seems like a buffoon, but it turns out he's right about everything, and he knows exactly what he's talking about. And Martin Short's just kind of trying to prove himself as the dad, husband, leader of a family, and Captain Ron unintentionally kind of bests him throughout the ways until in the end, he works to try to help him out and make the hero. So fantastic film. So I'll go ahead and talk about some of those films on top of Episode 3. As far as Second Amendment stories, we have the Armory bill coming out of Colorado, which is very concerning. And the Florida GOP legislature has been very, very naughty. If you don't know, Ron DeSantis and his, I guess you could call it his lame duck term here, his last few years as governor of Florida, is really trying to push a lot of very, very conservative, I would say almost libertarian legislature. Better late than never. I wonder if it's a little bit intentional and self-serving for him to do this because he's got nothing to lose at this point, and because the state's been becoming more and more red. There have been rumors that Casey DeSantis, his wife, wants to run for governor, but Byron Donalds is in there now, and that's kind of throwing a wrench into things. I love Byron Donalds as well. So I don't know where that's going to go, but Ron DeSantis has been pushing, no property taxes. He's been, proposing, gun legislature to undo what really brought me into this fold many years ago. And I think it's worth talking a little bit about my introduction story, just going back with Florida and the Second Amendment, as for those of you that may not know how I got into YouTube in the first place. I know most of you know me from, gaming and all the streams that I used to do with a lot of other people, but I cut my teeth in just wanting to share stories about the Second Amendment and show that, the stereotypes aren't true, especially within the Latin community. So we can talk a little bit about that. The trade war is still going on, obviously, with China. The Pope Francis passed away, so we'll talk a little bit about some of the implications of that. President Trump went to the funeral in Vatican City. He met with Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, and it seems like the Ukraine war is not really going anywhere. We had Virginia Guthrie, who was one of the most prominent victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his entire ring of, sexual exploitation, trafficking, and downright demonic activity on his island. She passed away earlier this week. They're saying it's suicide. I don't buy that at all. And so there's just a lot of intrigue brewing. So we've got political stories, we've got Second Amendment stories, we've got pop culture. Let's see where the story goes. We've got 12 people watching so far. Thank you so much, all of you. I see Forgotten Man, Greg the Goblin, Bong Donkey, Cerberus, Rob Simmons, Dengar Renegade. I appreciate all of you being here. So I think we'll start at the top with some of the Second Amendment stories that I had here. And the top one really is that the Florida GOP, so many years ago, for those of you that don't know, what really changed the face of the Second Amendment in Florida was obviously the tragedy that happened at Parkland High School. Not too far from here, probably 45 minutes north of where I live now. I used to drive past that high school all the time when I worked in the field and visited clients. And it really spurred my desire to become a Second Amendment advocate and make it happen, Governor Rolo. I want the 2A situation to be better in Puerto Rico as well, believe me, because I'm going to be living there a lot more, and I've got some things that I'd like to be able to eventually have there. But things have improved over the years. They're still not where they should be, but we'll talk about that in another episode. I should dedicate an entire episode on the Second Amendment and Puerto Rico one of these days. I had talked about it previously, but that show doesn't exist anymore. We went pretty in depth on it, but that's something that we can revisit, Arleon. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But as far as Florida, so really what brought me the catalyst of becoming a Second Amendment advocate many years ago and jumping back on the social media after I'd been off of Facebook, Twitter, every social media platform that existed at the time in 2017, well, really 2018, going into 2019. It was the first time that I really had been awakened. And over the years, I'd always known I was always raised conservative. And I think that I probably, especially when I was younger in high school, leaned towards the more neocon, hawkish wing of the Republican Party. And as the years have gone on, as we've seen that the government has lied to us, as I've become more educated on history and the multiple instances in which the federal government have betrayed us and stabbed us in the back, told us sweet words in our ears, and made us think that they were on our side. They've continued to desecrate and destroy the Second and First Amendment in this country up until obviously the term of President Donald Trump. But even President Donald Trump in his first term, was responsible for the bump stock ban and for, kind of promoting red flag laws with the take the guns first, due process second, which is one of the most notorious and egregious comments ever, anti-gun comments ever made by a president, especially one who espouses to be a Republican. So those are things that we've had to deal with now. He's since changed his stance on things, even after his attempted assassination attempts on him. So it's good to see that improvement. But this is really what sparked my wanting to get involved and stop being just a private, anonymous citizen who didn't want to be involved with social media, didn't want to gain any prominence whatsoever, to realizing that normal people need to be we need to be sometimes thrust into uncomfortable situations in order to achieve the goals that we desire. And that is, really preserving our rights and making sure that we're not oppressed by the federal government. So it was in 2019 that I started really getting involved, joined Instagram, where the Puerto Rican Pistolero kind of came to be, and went to a Second Amendment rally. In Florida, they had passed red flag laws. After Parkland, they had made the age to purchase a firearm 21 instead of 18. And we really saw, we had Rick Scott as our governor at the time. We had, the same thing that we have now, a supermajority in our legislature of the GOP, a Republican governor. Both of our, one of our senators at the time was Republican, which was Marco Rubio, who is now our Secretary of State for the entire nation. And it was very disappointing to see the knee-jerk reaction of the state of Florida for what amounted to failures of not only the local Broward Sheriff's Office and one officer in particular who was a coward, and the failure of the federal government, who had almost 30 instances of being able to prevent this massacre and arrest this perpetrator, but they didn't do it. Whether it was local, state, or federal law enforcement, as is often the case when it comes to these massacres and these mass killing events, it is often the government's fault each time. Now, there's nothing that you can do to prevent, an attack of that sort if there is somebody without a record. That's what happened in Las Vegas, which is its own different story. I'm not going to speculate on what happened in Vegas because honestly, we don't have enough information, but it's interesting that years after that, we still don't know what really went on there. And that's what sparked the whole bump stock ban at during the first Trump administration. And so going from there, I realized really had been reinforced after years and years and years of becoming more and more, I would say, politically homeless would be the way, more a little bit libertarian, constitutionalist, that I knew something had to be done. So joined IG, found the gun community on IG of all places, because what do you expect on IG? You just expect a bunch of e-thoughts and dudes showing off their cars. That's really what Instagram is all about. And to see a vibrant Second Amendment community there of amazing Second Amendment advocates like Argo J, the Real NOC, Tony Simon, Dick Heller, Rob Pincus, so many others, Jara Hutchins, who was a guest last year on this show, and congratulations to her. She recently got married, and she's a fantastic trainer. If you're in Texas and you have the opportunity to take one of her classes, I recommend it. Same thing with Kevin Dixie, the Real NOC. He's fantastic. A lot of the community is at the NRA annual meeting and show. They were there this past week. So I miss being more involved with the gun community. It's something that I'm going to go back to, especially since I'm going to be going into territory that is not so Second Amendment friendly as I'm used to in moving to Puerto Rico. So that's going to be, it has been a big transition to me. As Art Leone mentioned, being able to strap your iron onto you and not think about it is a luxury that not everyone in this country has, and that's a fight that we need to continue to push forward. It's one that never ends. As I always say, eternal vigilance. It's one of my favorite quotes on the side of the National Archives. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So we need to be continuing to push freedom in states and territories that are under the auspices of the U.S. Constitution, and make sure that every U.S. citizen has the rights of freedom of speech and self-protection, among the others in the Bill of Rights. And so I always tell everybody, be prepared for those things. Always be an advocate. I know many of you that listen to this show are from California, or even countries where there's no such thing as a Second Amendment whatsoever, and you can't exercise those rights, and you're being oppressed, not only in your abilities to defend yourselves, but even speak out about it throughout the UK and Europe and many of the other Commonwealth nations that we've seen that are so-called allies that oppress their people every day. So that's what inspired me. I went to SHOT Show, went to the Second Amendment rally at the time, and that's pretty much all she wrote. Got into all this, and always looked for a way to incorporate teaching people about the Constitution and the Second Amendment while, showing the stuff that we've got here, which is, video games, guns, pop culture, all that great stuff, and show that, being a gun owner, caring about your rights, all of those things they're not exclusive. We all care about those things. We're human beings. We want to defend our families. We want to be able to speak out, speak our minds in public without worrying about being imprisoned. And that's something that we can do here in the United States, but it's been slowly eroded from us. So that's a little bit of my background. Got involved there. Was very disappointed with the politicians here in Florida. Started going on, speaking tours, getting connections throughout the entire country. And that is really where things kind of grew from that point, and then got involved with a lot of other things that kind of strayed the path of what the original message of what this channel used to be and what it will be going forward, which is talking about freedom, the Second Amendment, and incorporating that with the things that we love, like pop culture and video games. So we'll be getting more and more of that, so we'll have different segments. But the Florida GOP will not bring up HB 759, which would pretty much retract the previous legislation that Florida passed denying 18 to 20-year-olds the right to keep and bear arms, which is their constitutional right within this country. And Senate Rules Chairwoman Kathleen Posidamo, a Republican from Naples, Florida, said that her committee will not take up HB 759. Posidamo said the decision against taking up the House bill was made before the shooting Thursday at Florida State University. That was last week. That killed 2 people and injured 6 others. The alleged gunman, the stepson of Leon County's sheriff's deputy, was also shot as police officers quickly responded to the scene. So, despite being the Second Amendment in the Constitution, it is oftentimes treated as the redheaded stepchild of constitutional rights. And that's something that we need to change, because even many Republicans are afraid of tackling gun rights and those issues because it is so emotional and so stigmatizing for so many people, because it's raw and visceral. And I think that oftentimes Republicans and even some in the Second Amendment community, not really those that I run in, don't sugarcoat the truth. And yes, you have to be blunt about your message and honest about it, but that doesn't mean that you lack empathy. But you do have to stay the course. You do have to be strong when it comes to these things. And that means that talking about guns it's an adult conversation, right? Isn't it? What are guns made for? Guns were made to kill things. That's what they were made for. Let's be perfectly honest about it. Let's make no bones about it. Hunting, sport shooting, competition, all that stuff. That's not what guns are for. That's not what the Second Amendment protects. It protects you and your family from those who would do evil among you, try to kill you, and a tyrannical government. That is what the Second Amendment is there for. There is no sugarcoating it. There's no other way to say it. They could make hunting with guns illegal, and that would probably not violate the Second Amendment, because that's not what guns are for. Guns are for defending you and your family against those who would commit evil against you, and a government that would be tyrannical against you. And this is something that we need to be frankly honest about. This is something we don't need to apologize for. It needs to be blunt, and it needs to be front and center, and that's just how it is. And we live in a society where people like to pussyfoot around the issues. They like to be politically correct, and they don't like to tell the truth. And I think that now, in this second Trump term, we've seen that blunt language come out much more prominent. And I think people understand that there are adults in the room now, and these are the conversations that we're going to have. But the Florida GOP seems to not understand this. And I think what is happening in Florida is something that we're probably going to see in a lot of other states, which is it is a state that has become so overwhelmingly red as far as the voter base and is becoming more and more conservative based on, first of all, the policies that have been very successful of Governor Ron DeSantis and obviously on the federal side of President Trump. But we have to give Ron DeSantis credit for being able to maintain Florida's economy and make it a desirable place to live throughout the COVID years and the Biden administration. So kind of hanging out there and being a beacon of hope for many other states in the union. And there are states that are way ahead of Florida when it comes to the Second Amendment. They have been for decades. But it's a good thing to see. Maybe it's a too little too late. My critique of Ron DeSantis would be that why didn't he do these things earlier? Now it's politically expedient because he's got nothing to lose. So better late than never when it comes to pushing a lot of these policies. But it's also easy to do when you've got nothing to lose. So I'll give that backhanded compliment, right? And this is kind of what the Republican Party has always done, hasn't it? Whenever they're not in power, they always pass legislation that you love. Like they put bills out there like concealed carry reciprocity, meaning that if you have a concealed carry permit in one state, it's good in every state in the union, and they all have to accept it. They can't come up with their own individual regulations. When it comes to the National Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act of the 1980s, all of these other things, Republicans will always, when they are in the minority, they will pass the most libertarian, freedom-minded bills, knowing that they will never make it out of the House or the Senate because they're on the losing side. And the Democrats do the same thing with their stuff. So this is all tokenization, taking advantage of voter bases on either side of the aisle. So it is that's really how it is. And it's not that you can't, you can own guns in Puerto Rico. You can get your own permit there. The rules are a little bit different. I do know many folks who do own guns in Puerto Rico and do carry them. You just have to deal with some of the BS. Like when you travel, you have to declare your firearms and all this stuff to the Puerto Rico police, which you shouldn't have to do. But if that's where you want to be, then that's what you got to do. So it's unfortunate. It's in a weird pseudo place, kind of in between like a Florida and where the New Yorks and Californias are. It used to be much worse, and it used to be just as bad as California or New York, and it has improved over the years. And I think we'll see that continue to move in the positive direction as more and more Puerto Ricans are exposed to the culture that we have here in Florida. There was a mass exodus after Hurricane Maria to Central Florida. And at this point, Florida has I believe it has the largest Puerto Rican diaspora, if you could call it that, of any state in the union, leading New York and Pennsylvania, being the other states that round the top three. And it's interesting because I have seen more and more people kind of doing what I've been doing, which is going back. And it has to do for a lot of different reasons, right? It's a tropical island. It's part of the United States. So we still have, for the most part, all of our rights. We use the U.S. dollar. We have the protection of the United States. We're all U.S. citizens. And so we have those benefits to some extent, and we don't have others and others. If you become a resident of Puerto Rico, your income taxes are completely different. And you're not doing federal income taxes. You're dealing with the Commonwealth taxes, which for many people are much lower. So there's some good incentives there, but you also don't reap a lot of the benefits of paying some of those federal taxes as far as Medicare, Medicaid, all those things are slashed. So there's a give and take there. It's kind of in a weird limbo as far as that is concerned. So I think that's where things are over there. So we'll see what happens as far as Puerto Rico. Hopefully it'll continue to move in the right direction, and I'll definitely be fighting that fight in the years to come to normalize all of this. And I think it's something that we have to work throughout the entire country, right? If Republicans really care about the Second Amendment, if Donald Trump cares about the Second Amendment, then national concealed carry reciprocity should be right on the table. As much as I'd love to believe that the National Firearms Act and the Gun Control Act will be repealed by Congress, I think that Republicans are too chicken shit to allow easily obtainable suppressors and automatic weapons on the market, even though they will gladly let you pay the money to do so. So, and for those of you that are not aware, you can buy silencers, you can buy fully automatic machine guns. They're not illegal. You just have to register them with the ATF, and you have to pay an insane amount of money in order to obtain them. Now, for suppressors, it's not so bad. It's a $200 tax stamp. A few months ago, now I've been out of the States, so I don't know this, but last time I bought a gun was a Mossberg Shockwave, and when I was at the gun store, they told me that they were processing, ATF forms in like 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, and you'd get your suppressor, which is unprecedented. So that's improved, but the fact that I still have to pay $200 to the feds, which that's been the rule since the 1930s. So that's really the equivalent of like thousands of dollars today. Had they not made it specifically $200, which was around the price of the most expensive submachine gun that you could buy at the time, which was the Thompson submachine gun. So, that's gone down. As far as the Gun Control Act, any automatic weapons manufactured before 1986, I believe, are the only ones that you can buy. Anything afterwards, you've got to have a licensing as a manufacturer through the ATF or a gun dealer, essentially, which is very difficult to get and maintain. And then because you're purchasing, if you're a civilian that's not a gun store or anything like that, or a manufacturer, and you want to buy a full auto weapon, not only do you have to get the stamp, you got to get registered and all this stuff. Good luck finding them, because it's anything before the mid 80s. So there's a scarcity involved there, which causes the prices to go up. So a gun that may normally cost you $800 to $1,500 in a semi-automatic version could cost you $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000, depending on the rarity of the firearm, even more if you want a full auto version. But you can't buy them legally. You just got to pay off the mob, which is the federal government. So it just tells you, how dangerous are they if I can just pay the money? It's all bullshit. We know this. This is how it's always been. This is why taxation is theft. This is why a lot of gun control legislation is utter crock. And we know it doesn't do anything to make people safer. It turns them into victims. And it's also an extortion racket by state and by local, state, and the federal government to take away your hard-earned money in order to exercise a God-given right. So this is really what we've been dealing with for a long time. So, and as you've seen, I've shot full auto weapons and things like that. I've shot with suppressors. It's not anything like how anybody thinks they are. Full auto is great for suppressing targets, and that's suppression in forcing your enemy to take cover, not suppressing sound or anything like that, because there's nothing quiet about a full auto machine gun, especially something like a Ma Deuce or anything like that. You're going to be deafened being around it. You're going to feel that concussive blast. So I've shot the AUG. I've shot, M16s. I've shot full auto Glocks, and the like, and they're amazing. I've shot a Vector and full automatic. So I've shot a few guns fully automatic, and they're a lot of fun. I'd love to be able to own one someday, just because they make you laugh. And ammo prices are a lot more affordable than they used to be. Maybe like a 22 and automatic. I guess I could buy one of those Tipman Gatling guns that you crank, and they are legal. They are, and that's a lot of fun. That'll be as close to like a rapid fire weapon as you can get. You can get a FRT triggers and things like that. if it floats your boat. They didn't let you buy those in Florida either. They got rid of that. So this is essentially what we've been dealing with. And this is what inspired me to begin this. So I think what we're seeing here, specifically in Florida, is that because President Trump and the Republican Party, even if most Republicans don't actually represent the populist wing of conservatism that President Trump has now raised as the banner of the GOP, they just don't care, right? And a lot of them are either milquetoast Republicans who have no skin in the game, who don't care about guns whatsoever, or they are turncoat Democrats who've crossed the aisle, so to speak, in a disingenuous manner. And I think we'll see more and more of those, especially in red and purple states, where they've realized that they cannot compete now as a Democrat. So they lie, they become Republicans, but then they continue to push liberal policies while supposedly being Republicans. So this is something that needs to be called out. This is something that needs to be stopped, but it's also something that we need to be aware of because many Republicans are not. This isn't just the rhinos. This is literally wolves in sheep's clothing that are trying to infiltrate the party. If you can't beat them, join them. And they're like cuttlefish, right? In evolution, beta cuttlefish, if you don't know, cuttlefish or squid, they can obviously change their colors kind of like a chameleon, and beta cuttlefish have kind of evolved to, be able to make themselves appear like women so that they can infiltrate, the female, I don't know what you'd call a squid, a school of squid, and try to infiltrate that, and then they'll show that they're male, and hopefully they can mate. And it's called the what we call the sneaky fucker. Pardon my language, a term when it comes to the animal kingdom. So that's what you've got. You've got a lot of Democrats who are sneaky frackers, who are trying to infiltrate the GOP and push their own policies just the same way that a cuttlefish would. So they're chameleons. They'll camouflage. They'll say the right things in one area, but when it comes to passing legislation and voting, they are Democrats through and through. And we're going to see much more of that, and it's something to pay attention to. So if you have a politician that's been a lifelong Democrat that is switching over to the aisle, you can give them a round of applause. You can hope that they've, seen that they were on the wrong side of history. But please continue to pay attention to their voting records because that will tell you the truth. That's really all there is to it. That will inform you of what is going on here. And Florida is really the example that you can see of where we have a vast supermajority of Republicans, but these Republicans run the gamut from liberal to MAGA. So this is where we're at. So pay attention to Florida. It's a litmus test. Whatever goes down here, especially when it comes to conservative policies, just like how California propagates liberal policies, it seems like Florida has been kind of the font for conservative policies over the last 8 years. It used to be Texas, but Texas is unique because their legislature, I believe, only meets every other year. And being such a large state, we've been seeing a lot of weird things happen in Texas, like, Islamic compounds being allowed to be constructed that supposedly wanted to espouse Sharia law. Now, Governor Abbott passed a law saying that Sharia law would never be allowed in Texas. Now, that should go without saying anywhere in the country. The Constitution is the law of the land. You cannot bring a religious or cult law that supersedes people's rights and do that. And, and obviously during the lockdowns and things like that, Texas kind of followed Florida's lead on that. Texas also has some weird, shady stuff with the way property taxes are and things like that. It's not as free as it's portrayed. So Florida is still a great place to live, but something we'll have to watch. But if we've got Casey DeSantis or Byron Donalds as our next governors of this state, then I am hopeful that things will improve. But this is something that we always have to check, because if you can't beat them, join them mentality is definitely going to prevail. And if the current civil war within the Democrat Party, where you're watching David Hogg as the one of the heads of the DNC go against the the party dinosaurs that have been there forever, then you know that there will be some shady business involved. And it really wouldn't. I wouldn't put it past them that they would take something like have intentionally having Democrats switch to the Republican side to have them be Trojan horses and sneaky frackers, just go in there and try to derail things and sabotage the Republican Party, or sabotage some of these state legislatures in order to push their agenda, because they got nothing else right. These politicians have no career prospects. They have nothing they can do. If they're left wing, they're not going to be useful as lobbyists in many of these states and in the federal government. So they got to find a cash cow, right? They've got nothing else on the resume. So they need to continue to stay politicians. They'll act like they're turncoats. Some of them may be legit. But even the ones that are legit, what's their motivation? What is it about it? Is it that the Democrat Party's become anti-American? I mean, that's a great motivation to leave the Democrat Party. But if you still believe in mostly liberal policies like crushing the First Amendment, Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, being a proponent of illegal immigration to the United States, I don't want you in the GOP. Go F yourself. Like, go walk away and retire. Like, those people shouldn't even be allowed to jump over. So I doubt that many of them have a total transformation. And if they do, is it really genuine? I don't think so. I think most politicians may lean one way or the other, but there's a uniparty, and there's also expediency, right? It's like, well, I made this a career. I'm just a freaking actor, essentially, or a puppet of lobbyists. So they have no ideology. They're political mercenaries. So whoever's giving them the cash or giving them great trips behind the scenes, giving them stock deals and insider trading information, that's who they'll vote for at the end of the day. And whether that's team red or team blue, doesn't matter. They'll switch the jersey. They're all free agents. It's just like a sports franchise, right? There's no loyalty to your home team or anything like that. Whoever pays me the most is the one that I'm going to go to. So this is where, we always have to maintain that level of vigilance in order to check things. And this goes for the Trump administration as well, right? Like, I'm going to harp on this. I'm going to continue to harp on this. And this is kind of a good transition, because who was our attorney general throughout a lot of things that happened in Florida? It was the existing attorney general of the United States. So what the hell has Pam Bondi been doing? She's not been doing anything. She's going after small fry stuff. And when I found out about Virginia Giuffre and her supposed suicide a couple of nights ago, I was going to tweet something out, and I regret not doing it. Now it's probably a little bit too late, but I said something to the effect, I'll just read it out, right? That what the hell's Pam Bondi been doing? And if the Epstein client list is truly so bad, be honest about it, or let us know that you're working to get arrested and it's going to be difficult because there are people of prominence that are on there. You're not giving up the game. The people that have been on Epstein's Island know they've been on Epstein's Island. They know they're on that list. They know that there may be records of them that exist somewhere if they weren't destroyed by the previous administration, or if there were some of them at all. Because let's be honest, I've also gone on the record in the past saying, if you are a federal organization that is doing really incriminating shit and that's downright evil, why would you keep records of it? It seems a little bit stupid to me. Why would you leave a paper trail that could be used against you and your organization later on? So was there ever an Epstein list compiled by the federal government? I don't even know if there was one at this point. Was it Epstein's own Rolodex that was found as evidence and they burned it away? I don't know. And that's part of the problem what we're dealing with. Because at the same time, they could easily say it was all destroyed. Maybe it never existed. Maybe we've got some of the evidence. We've got some of the records of the aircraft. President Trump was on one of these planes once, but I don't think he would have pushed the list if he felt like he was going to be incriminated, unless he was playing ultimate 4D chess, like let's screw us over just to get in power. And I would like not to believe that. I don't think that's the case personally, but I think what happened here was, if the list exists still and it hasn't been purged, I think that I think it needs to, it's got to come out, and we do. Look, it's only been a couple of months, right? It has been. It's only been since January, so about 3 months, 4 months. So this is something that we need to give time for. And if we're going over some of the, world's largest elites, it's something that we have to have patience for. But I would like to know in some cases if the list is so bad that it will destabilize the global economy and world governments to the point where we think that chaos and anarchy will ensue, at least let us know that that's what you're concerned about. It's still cowardly in many ways, but at least we'll know, okay, we see what's going on here. And I'm of the thinking too, and people may not agree with this because there are people that are going to get caught up in this, but I really don't have sympathy for this, is that even if you can't prosecute it because you don't think you have the evidence to do it, that may stick, and you're going against some of the most powerful people in the world, just release it. Even if you're not going to prosecute these people, let the general population tar and feather these people. Let their economic prospects be destroyed, because for a lot of these people, prison isn't good enough, and you're not gonna give them the death penalty, which is probably what a lot of these people deserve. So you're not gonna get true justice, which is a permanent justice. You're probably not going to be able to throw them in prison. So what's the next bet that you can get? It is taking all of the power, wealth, and influence away from these people and destroying their reputations. And for them, that is worse than death, because having their legacies destroyed is everything for them. That's what most of these people want. They want power that lasts for generations after they die. So if you're able to destroy their reputations, expose them for the frauds they are, and put it all out there, even if you're not going to imprison them, a lot of them aren't going to be able to walk much longer. I can guarantee you that, because the people will probably take things in their own hands, and at a minimum, their reputations will be destroyed, and they will no longer have the power and influence over the world that they have today. And at least that is some semblance of justice and neutering of these people, and we can put it out there. And then everyone will also know that justice to some extent can be served whether you're a homeless guy on the street or the wealthiest man in the world. And I think that that's what we need. We need confidence in the system that justice can be served, that just because you're an elite doesn't mean that you get to escape the consequences of your actions. So I think that's where we are. And I do agree with Night Train. I think the problem with Matt Gaetz was that Matt Gaetz, based on, look, he admitted that he did some of this stuff, whether it was illegal or not, doesn't matter. He was a party boy. He liked to drink and hang out with women and hire, escorts essentially. So even though I think Matt Gaetz would have gone after the Epstein List, you kind of don't want a guy that seems like he would have gone to Epstein Island, for better or for worse. Maybe that's unfair for me to say, to be the one on point for that, because it would take away some of the credibility. So I think you needed a Matt Gaetz character without the baggage of Matt Gaetz. And maybe that's what Trump tried to do initially. And he cut him loose because he knew, like, look, man, I really can't have you being the one to expose this stuff when you were doing some shady business yourself. And I get it, because Trump is a womanizer himself. He's partied. He's done all that stuff. He may not drink. He's a straight edge guy, but we know that Trump loves women. He's been unfaithful to wives in the past. So, maybe his thinking was, yeah, I love Gaetz. He's a bulldog. He's definitely going to go after these people, but it's kind of like sending a mobster to take on the mob. Yeah, it might make sense a little bit, but at the same time, it doesn't look that great. So let's bring in Pam, you know, who I don't really know what to think of Pam Bondi at this point. I don't know if she's got the cojones to do it, and it's not because she's a woman. Maybe it's her age, maybe it's something else, because she is older than she looks. So she's kind of running through an old school mentality of the way things are, but the MAGA base is not going to accept the Epstein list not being released. And that's pretty much it. And damn the consequences. If this is going to cause an upheaval, guess what? Our world is fake and we have evil people running it. Maybe there's no hope for it. You know, I'm the one that will go biblical with you guys all the time and say, it's a fallen world. This is the way it is. There's no way that we can ever achieve perfection. It doesn't mean that we don't strive to be better and find justice here for the innocent and help women and children that are in need, that are being trafficked, and young men too, and boys. It doesn't mean that we don't fight for these things, but it could be that at the end of the day, we find out it's all going to end anyway because it's all bad. And we're going against forces of evil that will always perpetuate. And that's what always happens in a fallen world until, you know, Revelations happens, and, you know, hopefully we're all saved in the end, and the prophecies are true. But in the meantime, nobody knows when that's going to happen. So this is where we are. So we have to do better for the victims, and we have to expose the elites. And there will be some sacrifices that have to be made. And this goes for pretty much everything that's going on in the Trump administration, right? Whether it's Doge making cuts, whether it's exposing the Epstein list, trying to get peace throughout the world, it is quite possible that President Trump, in many ways, President Trump squandered his first term because he underestimated the evil that the deep state was capable of. I really do think he was naive in that regard. I think he may have been a little bit surprised about his win in 2016. And I think he was also a little bit clouded by the fact that he had always, as a celebrity, kind of played both sides of the aisle for a while. Even though his own personal viewpoints were more conservative and populist and definitely nationalistic, which isn't a bad thing, patriotic, he was friends with everybody, right? Every celebrity loved him. Politicians on both sides of the aisle loved him. So I think it's definitely possible that Trump came in with a very naive perspective, and he's like, look, I'm talking shit on the campaign trail. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not actually going to prosecute Hillary. And that's what he said. I'm not going to do it. So he threw that out there as a peace offering. He's like, come on, guys. Like, I've been friends with a lot of you for a while. Just play the ball game, pass them on my stuff, support it, and we're good. We're good. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, Democrats, you guys are cool. Just play ball. And they wouldn't have it. They didn't. So I think that they took his words more seriously than he took his own words. And now in the second term, he learned his lesson and he's trying to do the right thing. But is it too little, too late? Is this just going to be a stopgap? So I think that that's really what's going on here. And it could be too, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, and I wouldn't like this either because I feel like this is what the previous administrations have done, is the Epstein list just being used as blackmail, you know, where it is the ring of power. And once Trump got it, he was like, well, you know, a lot of the policies that I want to pass are going to be dependent on key political leaders, whether it's in this country or abroad, major corporations to front the Capitol. So if I dangle this piece of blackmail in front of them, they're going to do what I need to do, right? And I think that'd be pretty freaking terrible, let's be honest. And that's kind of unforgivable if he would do that, unless he's playing to backstab everybody. So basically blackmail them, screw them over, fleece them for what they've got to help the United States. And then at the end of the day, oh, by the way, I'm going to still expose you. So go after yourself. Now that would be the ultimate 4D chess move. And if, 3 years from now he ends up doing that, then I'll be like, this dude was the G. He was the greatest of all time. He played them at their game. He Trojan horsed them. He did his own cuttlefish move on them, and he played him for all he had, So I would like to believe that that's the case. I don't know. But I think something has to happen, right? It really does. And after all the tough talk, now Pam obviously was not the DOJ nominee for a long time, so I don't really know what she said before the election. But Kash Patel, he went on Tim Pool and a bunch of shows a million times. And he started talking about the Stan Bongino, but obviously they're subordinate to her. So we'll see what happens here. And I'd like things to change. I'd like things to go forward, and for all of these people to be exposed on both sides of the aisle. And it's something that we need to continue to hammer and harp on. That's the difference between us and the left. The left are mindless sycophants here on the in the MAGA movement or whatever. I don't even know what to call it anymore, because is it conservative? Is it populist? Is it patriotic? America first, whatever you want to call it, constitutionalist? Not necessarily. We've got a big umbrella, which is another problem that we're going to have to reckon with eventually. How do we combine forces here and really get things done? What are we going to do here? And how are we going to make sure that we expose the turncoats on our own side? I don't know. So this is what we need to look at. This is where we need to hold our leaders accountable. And this is where we prove too. And I've been proud of a lot of the independent media here. Now, some of them, they're MAGA to the end, a win, lose, or draw, which is fine. But I'm not going to be beholden to any mortal on this earth just because they make me promises until they put up. If you don't show me the proof is in the pudding, I don't give a crap who you are. I will support you, but at the end of the day, if you don't get the job done, I don't care. I really don't care what you're, what pretty words you've told me. If you don't have the action that backs it up, and show that you actually do believe in this, I'm not going to sit here and suck up to you all the time. It's not going to happen. So that's where I'm at. So I'll call out any conservative. I'll call out President Trump. I'll call out any of them. I am not loyal to anybody whatsoever. I am loyal to my God, and I believe in the Constitution. And that is all there is to it. And if you violate those principles, then that's it. Like, I really don't care who you are. I'm going to critique you. And if you're actively working against suppressing my rights, I'm going to oppose you. And as we all should. So the left has suffered under its sycophancy for decades here. We see that, and that's something that we can't fall for on the right or libertarian, constitutionally minded wing of things. We have to continue to be strong and hold people accountable. And yes, we do need to have patience. Totally agree. But you got to let these people know. You got to keep the pressure going. So obviously, I support the deportations. I support what's going on with the trade war and all of that. And I'm happy to support those things. But at the end of the day, if we get through 4 years and the Epstein List has not been exposed, I think this administration will be a disappointment, because then it won't matter what they do. It won't matter all the illegals that we deported. It won't matter how much money Doge cut. It won't matter what we did with the southern border, especially if Congress, first of all, if Congress doesn't pass any real legislature, the next president will be able to flip this over with an executive order if it's not J.D. Vance. So that's going to be irrelevant. All these executive orders, it's like, oh yeah, awesome. They're going to go away. 30 minutes into, and Trump has thrown down the gauntlet now too, right? So the Democrats that come after him are going to emulate what he does. They're going to do a social media blitzkrieg. They're going to do all their executive orders just like Trump did. They're going to learn the lessons of what made Trump's campaign so successful, the things that you can take away. Some of them are not replicatable because Trump is his own force and his own personality that no one else can really emulate properly. He is his own being, so to speak. So he is the MAGA movement through and through. So the Democrats will not be able to replicate that. They'll have to find their own, cult of personality to rally behind. It's not going to be AOC. She's an idiot. We know that. She's not to be underestimated, though, because She does have a lot of money behind her. And when it comes to social media savvy, she understands the internet pretty well. And that's what allowed Trump's campaign to do unprecedented things and achieve what they did during the 2024 election cycle. So that's something that we need to be wary of. It's going to be a case study that they sit back and watch for years, and they will try to emulate the positive for it. And they'll see where they lost. They'll see where grassroots efforts succeeded. And we've already seen it, right? With the Wisconsin Supreme Court elections. Excuse me. I didn't get much sleep last night. And even in the Florida GOP special elections to replace, Matt Gaetz' seat and others, they weren't as large a landslides as we expected. So this is something that we're going to have to continue to stay on top of and pay attention to, because this could easily flip on us at any moment. So the Epstein List doesn't improve normal people's lives at the end of the day. It does, because at the end of the day, if you've been lied to about everything and everything that you have is a lie, and essentially your life could be better because elites are making deals that they can get away with, that take away your own money. Yes, we may live better than any other society in history, but that doesn't mean that we could live as well as we can when people are stealing things from us. But yeah, most normies don't care. They do not. And I think most normies, it's true. I had this discussion the other day with the mod extraordinaire, and I remember telling her, asking her the question, do you think that if people had the choice, it's like the Matrix, right? This is really what it comes down to. I think the Epstein List is the Matrix red pill, blue pill question, which is, would most people rather continue to live their lives even if they know they're oppressed, or with the ignorance of knowing that they're oppressed, where basically, like, yes, they can achieve a good middle class living, they can have a decent life, they can buy all these amazing electronics and all this stuff, they can go on social media, they've got their bread in circuses, but it's all a lie, but they get to continue to live that way, or they learn the truth and then they will live in squalor. Because if the Epstein List is this damaging, it will cripple our economies. It could lead to companies being destroyed, a stock market crash, and it could lead to war, depending on who we've incriminated on that list and how they've been exposed. It could be the destabilization of countries and corporations all over the world, the likes of which that we've never seen before. Is that cost worth knowing the truth? I think that it is. I think most people would probably say, no, it's not. If you're telling me that my family will suffer because the economy is going to crash just so that we could expose, millionaires and billionaires, trafficking children and exploiting them, maybe murdering them in some cases, and doing rituals with them and exposing all that demonic, satanic evil that is undergirding a lot of our government in Hollywood, they say, no, it's totally fine. I want to be able to get up and go to work, and that's it. I don't really care. Let them get away with it. I don't want any discomfort. So yeah, I think you can see that, and it's very disappointing that may be the case. But there'll be a reckoning and this sort of judgment for that one way or the other at the end of the day. So I think rip out the Band-Aid, get it over with, and we start from scratch if we have to. Most people probably would not think that, and we may all suffer. Who knows? Maybe everything will just default and there'll be chaos and anarchy. But I think we're a little bit more resilient than that. And I think that we can make it. So let's just get it over with. Get it over with. At a minimum, expose them. If you can't arrest these people, destroy their reputations and put it out there. And let the chips fall where they lie. A lot of them won't make it past that anyway, once you put it out there. So that's really what I've got to say about that. Release the list. Virginia Giuffre, when I saw that news that she had supposedly committed suicide, she'd gotten hit by a bus a few weeks back, supposedly only had 4 days to live, clawed her way back and survived, and then all of a sudden killed herself. I mean, is it possible? Sure. Could she have lost hope and believe that Epstein and his ilk will never be exposed, yeah, I mean, that is definitely possible. So what, and that's what they're going to go with. And it could be, right? You know, maybe she lost hope. She'd been through so much with being, trafficked and groomed, and who knows what atrocities were committed to her, against her. Then being such a prominent voice against Jeffrey Epstein, exposing Prince Andrew and all the stuff with those allegations, I'll say in quotes, just because nobody's ever been prosecuted on this except for Ghislaine Maxwell. So I just find it hard to believe that somebody that's been through that could do it. Now, is it possible maybe she got head trauma or something when she got hit by a bus and it changed? And I do know that, kind of going on an aside, working in the gun community for so long and with organizations like holdmyguns.org and Walk the Talk America, which push suicide prevention a lot, you do know that a lot of times suicide is a spur of the moment choice. A lot of times when you see the people that are crying for help, that say they're going to, take their own lives or do things like that, that's really what it is. They're suffering some sort of emotional or psychological breakdown. It's a cry for help. It could be a cry for attention that they want. Many of them will not do it. You still need to take it very seriously. But a lot of times, people that do end up taking their own lives, you had no sign of it. It's just in that moment. And because it is so easy to be able to do something like that, especially if you do have access to, certain chemicals or a firearm, you may consciously in that moment have like a moment of almost temporary insanity and think that that's the right thing to do. And that's not something you can take back, right? Whereas if you had, maybe a few minutes to sit down, or if somebody spoke to you, be like, all right, I'm over this. I'm not going to do it. But in that one moment, you've kind of lost it. Boom, it's done. And now it's over. And there's no coming back from that. That's forever. You're dead. So, is that possible? Yeah, it could be. But look, either way, Jeffrey Epstein killed her. The people that trafficked her and groomed her killed her. And at the end of the day, this needs to put pressure on Pam Bondi and the Biden and the Trump administration, I should say, Biden administration, to do the right thing and find a way to get this out as quickly as possible, or at least give us information. Because, to at least say that you're trying to do this a little bit more would be better, and really elaborate, because we're dealing with elites. Like, these people know they're on the list, so they already have contingencies in place. They'll bail out of the country or wherever they are. They'll get the most high-powered lawyers ever. They've got their own other connections and their own private intelligence and counterintelligence and security companies and things like that they can cause issues. We already know this. It's all out there. So do you think these people don't know it's going to come their way? Do you think that they're not prepared? Do you think that most of them are actually going to go to jail one way or the other? No, they're not. So you may as well put as much information out there as you can to assuage the people that are the most fervent supporters of this administration and throw the bone, right? That's what you got to do. I think that's the right thing. So somehow I managed an hour and 12-minute opening monologue on this. This is crazy. This is what always happens here on Rolo's Rants. I don't know how I do it. So let's see where we can go on here. So we talked about the Florida GOP. We talked about the Epstein List. We talked about Virginia Guffrey. We talked about Second Amendment stuff. Colorado is going to pass an armory bill, supposedly, which Colorado is one of the most egregious anti-Second Amendment states. The armory bill wants to draw an arbitrary line on the number of firearms a citizen can own before being classified as an armory. So capping the number of firearms you can buy in a month and capping the number you can own and creating a registry. All of things that violate the Second Amendment here, because shoot. Around me right now, would this be an armory? I don't know what's the number, right? Is two's a couple, three's a crowd. Is that an armory for these people? What is it? Is it 10 guns? Is it 20 guns? Is it 100 guns? I don't know. What does that mean? And does it matter? And as an individual, does it matter? Because I can't use all these guns at once anyway. I've got two hands. I can use two. Maybe if I had Orangutan, as some people have said, or orangutan, as those who are learned and educated would say, feet, then maybe I could use 4 guns at once. But, as a normal human being that has any hope of trying to use a firearm effectively, 1 is the best, 2 in a pinch. And after that, like, I can't really use any more of them effectively unless I'm passing them out to the boys and the local neighborhood. And even then they could have bought guns on their own. So it's not like I'm benefiting entirely from it, except for the amount of money that I've spent. But, let's be realistic here about all this stuff. So Colorado is going to pass this. We'll see what happens. Colorado is terrible. We've had some great people there, like the Boomstick Babe and Ava Flanell, who's the daughter of Dragon Man, have really fought the good fight in Colorado. It's made no difference, unfortunately. The state legislature there is way too stoned and way too far left to give a crap. And they're just going to continue to oppress Second Amendment rights in that state. So 5 guns and 500 rounds is an arsenal. To most of us, that's a light range. I mean, tell me about it, right? Like, I go to the range and I'm carrying like maybe just 5 handguns, right? Because that's just easy to carry in one bag, let alone the amount of long guns. It's pretty much the only reason why I don't take more is because it's freaking inconvenient. But 500 rounds during a weekend training is exactly what you need. In fact, you do most training classes and you get the syllabus when you're about to go in, and they tell you, what do you need? Usually a rifle, a pistol, and 250 to 500 rounds of ammunition for each one, depending on how long the training session is. If it's a week-long training session, like something you do at Thunder Ranch, you're going to need like 1,000 or 2,000 rounds. And so that's easy out there. I'm not even going to go into discuss how many rounds I've got here because I stockpiled them over the Biden administration. So, I've definitely got a supposed armory based on this, on what they've said. I've got multiple ARs and pistols and all this stuff and magazines. And so, what am I doing? Am I like starting to fund a third world country? And I'm small potatoes compared to most of the people that I know, let alone the ones that are actually like gun tubers, like, guys like Demolition Ranch, Brandon Herrera, Kentucky Ballistics, Colio Noir. I've never met Demo Ranch. I never had the pleasure to do that before he retired from the game. But I met all these other guys, and they've got way more guns that are a lot nicer than most of the ones that I have. So what are they? Are they like global arms dealers at this point? So it's just crazy. It's just crazy, right? No, Leon, it's not an arsenal, man. It's just called, it's like women with shoes, right? So if a woman can own 100 purses and 100 pairs of shoes, then I can own 100 guns, because there's plenty of guns out there and they're all different and they're all awesome. If I could own cars like that, I would, but cars are a lot more expensive, not by much, but they are. And, hey, we'd all love to do it, right? Anybody that's into collecting, because part of it is the collection, right? Because realistically, I think it would be more suspicious for the government, though you still have the right, if you bought 100 of all the same gun, right? So if you went and you bought like 100 BCM or Daniel Defense or even PSA AR-15s, all the same spec, I'd be like, okay, maybe this is somebody that wants to arm something because they're all standardized. But if you're buying all different, but even then, none of their damn business, right? It isn't. You could just maybe just want a bunch of them, because if these zombie apocalypse hits, you're going to have a ton of parts kits and you're going to be able to help your community. Makes sense to have standardization. But that would be more suspicious than this, a person who's got like 100 guns and they're all different types. Like, that's a collector, clearly. And that's what most of us are. I mean, look, what do I got on the table here? I've got a single action revolver here because I was watching Tombstone. I've got a Mark 18 behind me. And I've got my concealed carry weapon next to me, which is a 380. And I've got too many other ones that are within arm's reach, hidden and not hidden in here, in this room, let alone in this house. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not putting myself out there. I'm not afraid to talk about it because that's my constitutional right, and I don't intend to do anything to harm anybody, and I never have. And honestly, they're not going to do anything, right? Look, it's an inert object. It's like sitting right here. It's not going to do anything. And this one's not going to do anything either, you know? So it's a piece of metal that is incapable of doing anything on its own. It is up to a human being, or I guess, you know, an ape or a monkey, or even certain animals with fingers or small appendages could in theory use it. But that's, you know, neither here nor there. So it doesn't matter what you think, where you fall on this issue. All gun laws are unconstitutional. They are suppression of your rights, and I don't stand for any of them. You guys know I'm a Second Amendment absolutist, except when it comes to like nuclear and chemical and biological weapons, but that's just because those tend to be a little bit indiscriminate. But when it comes to anything else, yeah, of course, people should own machine guns. Why not? Just don't be a dumbass with them. Just like you're not an idiot with a car or anything else that you may own that would be highly destructive. I mean, we had another massacre here in Canada with somebody running over people with a car. We've seen multiple mass casualty events with cars, with explosives or things like that. They're just built from household products. So in the UK, they have knife issues. So, you know, violence is going to happen whether the tool is a firearm or your bare fists. And when it comes to rifles and assault weapons, more people are killed by melee weapons and fists than are by rifles. And that's not including what the far left would call, or the left wing would call, assault weapons, which is a misnomer. Because I don't know what makes it an assault weapon. Is it like a side of, like, you know, well, I need some, you know, an ACL? That's really what it is. The chemical compound of what salt is. You know, it's like a salt shaker. What is that? I don't know. I don't know what an assault weapon is. So I can tell you what an assault rifle and a battle rifle are and what those definitions are. And as a civilian, could I own those things? Actually, yes, I could. And that even goes even further. So, but could I own a real assault rifle and a real battle rifle if I wanted to? Yeah, if I can pay up and register, sure I can. And the feds are okay with that. So what's the problem with owning an AR-15, which is semi-automatic? Nothing. Nothing at all. So screw them all. Forget what they have to say when it comes to this issue. All gun laws are infringement. I stand for the Second Amendment. I stand for the right to keep and bear arms, self-determination, freedom of speech, self-protection, and that's all there is to it. So pay attention to what the Trump administration does. Pay attention to what's going on in Florida. And obviously, if you're in a blue state, you're fighting this battle all the time. People in Colorado, you have my sympathy. It's a beautiful state, just like California is. It's a shame that some of the most beautiful states in the country are run by some of the craziest people, but that's because beauty attracts every walk of life. So you're going to get all these crazies that want to suppress your rights, and that want the safety over. They would rather have it be safely enslaved than to have dangerous freedom. And I'd rather have dangerous freedom at the end of the day. Let's be honest. So we got to oppose this at every step of the way, as we have been. And we've made huge strides, right? I mean, look where we are today. Concealed constitutional carry is the law of the land in more than half of the states in the union, and that's going to keep expanding. There are more guns owned in private hands than ever before. That's going to continue on, and the destigmatization of gun ownership is well on its way through social media and other means. So it is not a bad time to be a gun owner, but that is always the time where we can't rest on our laurels. We got to keep pushing. And that goes with everything. It's not just guns, it's freedom of speech and all of our other God-given rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. And I would encourage you all, if you don't already own a pocket Constitution or something like that, go ahead and buy one. It's a useful resource to have. And I don't even know where the heck did I put mine. I just had it like a second ago. Here we go. So always have a pocket constitution with you and the Declaration of Independence. Go through it and look up these things yourself and have it carry. These things are cheap. You can get them for like $2 or $3 usually, at least this one. Ironically enough, is a pocket constitution that was printed in Canada. So get a load of that. So we should go through the Constitution again one of these days. Back in the day, which was probably a Wednesday. It usually is a Wednesday when you think about back in the day. We would read the Constitution in English and in Spanish. Maybe that's something that I will go back towards when I go back to Puerto Rico. We'll bring that back and we'll start incorporating some of that because I do want to. I've never liked the race card or anything like that. That's far left stuff, but we do need to educate people who have come into this country and are trying to assimilate. They've come here legally. They're becoming citizens, and they want to know about their rights. We do have to educate a lot of these people. And in my case, I need to educate people in Puerto Rico about their rights and start affecting change there in the future. Maybe I got to open a gun range on the farm or something. So that's just really what it is. So we've just got to continue to be vigilant, elect officials that are going to push that and avoid succumbing to the Fed posting. So don't succumb to that, the intimidation or anything like that, because the Feds are always going to try to get you to say and do things to incriminate you and try to suppress your rights that way. So, it is a good time for gun owners right now. I would say we're on the upswing, but that means that we just need to pay attention even more to make sure that legislation like HB 759 is actually passed by those who are supposedly Second Amendment believers in the GOP. So that's the way that we do it. So education is the best way. And honestly, teaching normies, right? I think that was one of the goal of why I started this and why I even got involved with different organizations. You guys have seen me. Obviously, I used to be a part of Geeks and Gamers. And, Eric July was one of my good, is somebody that I still, love and consider a friend. The reason why I started expanding out of this was because I saw people that were fighting the good fight when it came to freedom in the pop culture space. And I realized there are a lot of folks out there that believe the things that we do, and they don't have that representation. So, and you also want to show the normies that, hey, most people would probably look at the things that I own without seeing my gun collection. They'd be like, this guy's a total nerd. Look at that. He's got his gaming PCs. He's got retro consoles. He's got, Power Rangers, Megazords, Jurassic Park toys, comic books, all this stuff, a massive game collection going back to Super Nintendo and Game Boys. This guy's a total nerd. He's built all his own PCs. He plays video games with his old man and his brother every week. So, this is a guy I can relate with. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I own guns. And I go into shooting competitions. I've gone on speaking tours. I've spoken nationally about this type of stuff. So am I the stereotypical gun owner? Am I the stereotypical nerd? No, but there's no such thing as a stereotype, right? Some of those stereotypes may be true. We're all in different things, but we're individuals. We're each different in our own ways, and we're multifaceted. So you can't just judge a book by its cover in any sort of way. So I wanted to show people like you guys to know what you can do and wake more and more people up, and taking people out to the gun range and showing them what it's all about really is the best way to do it. I've found that is the best way, especially when you're disarming and charming, like moi. I'm kidding. A lot of people are more amenable to your message. I can't tell you how many times I used to go out when I used to work in the field in my day job, and depending on where I'm at, I would let people know, like, hey, I conceal carry and I do these things and I'm into this stuff. And I try to keep that separate. Obviously, I don't want my day job and my advocacy or my streaming to like affect one another. They're all kind of in their own silos. It's like being Batman. It's like you go out during the day and nobody knows what you actually do at night, as far as all this stuff. But it was always, hey, trying to put those, those little kernels of truth out there. Let people know, like, hey, I own guns. I go shooting to the shooting range. I teach people. I'm a range safety officer by training and all that stuff. And I've got friends that do this, that were either, ex-military, ex-police, or just Joe Schmo that became a really good competition shooter, and you could smoke any of them. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, no way. Like, why do you own a gun? Like, what is that? What's it all about? And then, they're like, well, I like you and you're not crazy. You're not like a dude that's going to go out and hurt people. So maybe most gun owners are like that. It's like, yeah, they really are, because they're all around you, especially here in Florida. So, and it can be humbling too, when you realize you're carrying a firearm. It takes great power, is great responsibility. And you understand, hey, if I'm carrying a gun, I assume that everyone else is. That's what I do. Every time I go out in Florida, I assume everybody's got a gun, no matter who they are. So, hey, there we go. We took it to the next level here. We took it to the next freaking level. We were able to push all of this through. I didn't even talk about the Pope and all of that and Zelensky. And now I'm just going to move on. Like, we've talked about politics. We talked about the Epstein List. So let us talk about, I don't know what's going to happen with the Pope. I know conclave is supposed to happen 9 days, I believe, after the funeral is supposed to happen for 9 days. Then conclave will happen. I think the Catholic Church is, you guys know I'm a born-again Christian. I was raised Catholic my entire life. I've always been a believer. Over the last year and a half, I really have gone deep into my faith, and I am Jesus Christ is my Savior. I've, read through, I've been studying the Bible, read through, obviously, more of the New Testament, going through the Old Testament, studied that, and have learned a lot about the history of the church and Christianity, just to educate myself. And, even some of the crazier things that are going on in the spiritual realm, whether you're talking about Nephilim, UFOs, and different things like that. I've dabbled and delved into all of that. So obviously within certain circles, the Catholic Church is either seen as the ultimate good or the ultimate evil. I think that like any other mortal run organization, you're going to have corruption. I think, I'm not going to disparage the dead too much, but I did not like a lot of the policies that Pope Francis espoused with, liberation theology, which is South American, and it's really a Jesuit sect of the Catholic Church. The Jesuits have done good things throughout history, like spreading Christianity throughout different parts of the world, establishing churches, and being a force of humanitarian aid. At the same time, we know that with liberation theology, that there's been a lot of, it's kind of gone left wing, and there's some, accusations of relations with Marxism, and that's why it's so closely associated with socialist governments within South America. And I think that was a massive influence for Pope Francis, being a Jesuit as well. So I didn't believe in a lot of those things. I think the Catholic Church has also covered up a lot of things throughout the decades and years, but that doesn't mean that if you're a Catholic that you're bad or anything like that. It's more an indictment on the church and church leadership being political than the faith itself. I mean, we read the scriptures and everything like that, and we believe in Christ as our Savior. So it's not the type of a battle there. I think for the most part, most Catholics and Protestants, if you start having a discussion about Scripture itself and you open up the Bible, everybody's going to agree on 90% of the things there. So, but I do think that the Catholic Church is going to be the force of good or the force of ill going forward, depending for Christendom going forward. There are more Catholics than any other denomination in all of Christendom. So a good righteous Catholic Church that is godly and teaching the right lessons is not a bad thing, I don't think, especially when it comes to charity and helping the poor throughout the world and those in need and humanitarian aid, and also pushing back against the scourge of the spread of Islam throughout the world, which it is a scourge. I'm not going to make any bones about it. You can call me Islamophobic or anything like that, but I think that Islam is kind of the antithesis of Judeo-Christian principles, and it's a force to be reckoned with. So we do need a counter to that, and Western society is built on, Christian ideology. Whether you're an agnostic or atheist, that's the truth, and so it's something to be protected and cherished, and at least recognized as like, well, this is kind of the foundation of the rights that we believe in, and so that's something we need to push forward through. So I would watch what the conclave is and get to know who some of the candidates are for the next pope. I believe is his name Dr. Frank Marshall? Let me try to bring it up here before I get the name incorrect. He's a psychologist. He used to be Protestant and he converted to Catholicism. And he has a fantastic podcast on Taylor Marshall, Dr. Taylor Marshall. So here's his YouTube channel right here. Let's share the screen. Boom. So we'll bring that up over here. Let's switch this over to this screen. And he goes through some of the top candidates are, I love this last guy, Cardinal Pizza Balla. Like, can you imagine having a name called Pizza Balla? Like, that's crazy. Like, you're a baller for pizzas. So, so if you want to know who some of the top prospects are for the next pope, I encourage you to check out Dr. Taylor Marshall's podcast. I think he's a great theologian. He's fantastic. And if you're a Catholic or even a Christian, like, just go ahead and watch it. Like, we're all keepers of the faith, right? We're all saints in our own way by being believers in Christ. If you are, if not, if you're just curious about it and you want to know about what's going on, if you're a non-believer, that's fine. Hey, we'll always invite you to walk in the faith and get to know things. But if you just want to be at least an educated and enlightened individual and know what's going on, go ahead and check him out. It's pretty cool. And I would also look up, if you want to get more conspiratorial and get into prophecy, you can look up the final pope if you want to really delve into some wild stuff, the prophecy of the last pope, which supposedly Francis would have aligned with that. So I don't know. Are we supposed to get another pope, or is it all bunk? Well, I guess we'll find out. So a lot of things have been proven not to be true at the end of the day. So, all right, where'd my mouse go? Boom. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. So how are we going to spend the last few minutes of the show here? I think we're going to probably move over to pop culture and talk about Star Wars Episode 3. I do want to talk about a little bit about and Tombstone is just a great movie. I got to say it. I just watched it again 2 hours ago. Absolutely fantastic. I would have to say it's my favorite Western of all time. And definitely my favorite Western of all time. One of my top 5 movies of all time at this point. Val Kilmer's performance, you should have gotten the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in that role. That was like a Johnny Depp level as Captain Jack Sparrow performance, or even Robert Downey Jr. as in Tropic Thunder. So I think it's definitely, if you have not seen it before, you should check it out. Amazon's adding a lot of 80s and 90s movies to their catalog, and it's been great. That's where I've been watching everything lately, and watching movies that honestly I have no business being on the internet and not having watched a lot of these films, and Tombstone is one of them. The story of Wyatt Earp, his brothers, and Doc Holliday taking on the Cowboys in Arizona as first normal civilians just trying to leave their past of being lawmen behind and strike it rich, and then being thrust into a situation that quickly became out of control and that ended in revenge. So fantastic movie. Fantastic. So I recommend you all check it out. Westerns are a great genre. It's about as American as it gets. So I'll probably go down the the Clint Eastwood path and watch some of the classics as well. And yeah, Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, all that stuff. And, the original Magnificent Seven. So I recommend it for all of you. And get yourselves some revolvers and lever actions, because, man, there's nothing more fun than shooting a gun that you have to really manually control yourself. And there's something about it that's beautiful, nostalgic, and very, very American. I don't think there's really anything more American than a revolver and a lever action rifle, maybe a shotgun. And you can get a lever action shotgun too. So there you go. Best of both worlds there. But episode 3, I remember back in the day when the prequel trilogy was trashed by so many people. And maybe it was mostly Gen Xers at the time, because I remember growing up as a wee lad, as a millennial, and watching The Phantom Menace, watching episode 2 and episode 3. And I loved them all. I really did. I thought they were fantastic. I was blown away by the CGI at the time. When Phantom Menace came out in theaters, it was great, especially somebody like myself who was born at the tail end of the 80s and didn't have the opportunity to watch Star Wars in theaters and a lot of these epic space operas in my prime in the theater. That finally having that moment of watching, the story of these characters I had grown up on in my uncle's house. Really, my uncle, you guys know Doc, on the streams. He was the one. My cousin, his son, who's like a month younger than I am, was the one that really introduced me to Star Wars and got me into it. And they had the trilogy on VHS, and that's where I watched it for the first time at their house. And I instantly fell in love with Star Wars and the entire story, and just the Luke Skywalker's hero's journey, the lovable scoundrel that is Han Solo, Princess Leia, who was a strong woman who could still be sexy at the same time, which people act like that doesn't exist anymore, and we're trying to, defeminize every woman out there, or act like every woman hero now is like the first that's ever existed, when we've seen them all in the 80s, brought us so many great female protagonists and actresses like Sigourney Weaver, and others, and we've seen so many. So it's crazy. But I remember finally having that opportunity to watch episode 1 in the theaters, and I was blown away by it. And even though episode 1 is so different, and we'd probably consider it the weakest of the prequel trilogy for sure, and maybe the weakest of all the original of the 6 George Lucas films, it still has a special place in its heart, and it establishes everything that was going on in the future, correct? With the fall of the Republic, the rise of Palpatine, seeing young Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the reemergence of the Sith. I think it was fantastic. And as somebody that also read the expanded universe of novels, the Thrawn duopoly, and everything that went on all the way from the New Jedi Order, the Yuuzhan Vong, going on beyond that with Darth Caedus, who was the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, and the repercussions of that going 40 years beyond what occurred at the end of the Return of the Jedi. Now to see the prequels come to life was incredible. And Attack of the Clones was great. I still think the title Attack of the Clones is really stupid and cheesy, like, let's be honest. But, Hayden Christensen, obviously, early on in episode 2 wasn't necessarily the greatest actor, but we know that George Lucas is not the best at writing exposition. So, but now looking back, I think with especially the garbage that we see today, the bar has been lowered, and also we appreciate what the prequels established. I think especially when you watch the Clone Wars series, especially before Disney acquired it, it really fleshes the story out and makes it complete. And you get to really see the fall of Anakin and how he eventually became Darth Vader. And episode 3, it's really, sometimes it's difficult for me to decide whether when I was growing up, Return of the Jedi was always my favorite movie. And because I think it's, as a kid, you don't pick up on all the themes necessarily as well as you do when you become a teenager or an adult. And so for me, Return of the Jedi was my favorite because of the battle over Endor. I think this the battle over Endor with the second Death Star, and watching Lando and Rogue Squadron, fly into the Death Star's reactor and blow it up, and seeing the Rebel fleet fighting toe to toe against the Executor, the Superstar Destroyer, and the Imperial fleet was epic. It was something that we had never seen before that. And it was a great culmination. But as I've gotten older, I think the impact, the emotional impact, and the fact that the Empire essentially wins and the Empire strikes back was so subversive for the time. And it was such a great middle act of the trilogy that, Empire became my top one. But then going back even further now and then watching episode 3, it's difficult for me sometimes to decide whether episode 3 is my favorite, or because kind of a similar theme, right? All is lost at the end of episode 3. The Jedi Order is gone. They've been almost completely run to extinction and cast into the galaxy. Anakin, the savior, has fallen to the dark side, and he's becoming Darth Vader at the end of the movie. Padme is dead. All hope is lost. Obi-Wan is on the run, and the Death Star is beginning its construction. It really is a dire time, and I love how dark the tone is, and just how dark the movie is in general, right? Just to see the brotherhood between Obi-Wan and Anakin that started as a mentorship that became really a brotherly love fall apart, and to see Obi-Wan have to, dismember Anakin on Mustafar in that epic battle. It was just something that we'd never seen before. And the lightsaber battles of that were so over the top. The computer animation was great. Seeing General Grievous in the end of the Clone Wars, getting the culmination with Dooku, seeing Palpatine become the Emperor for the first time. There are just so many key important moments. Watching Yoda and Emperor Palpatine duel it out in the Senate. I mean, classic moment after classic moment. I mean, even from the opening shot where you start just with that opening of right after the title, the title crawl goes away. You just see the Separatist and New Republic fleets going at it over Coruscant, and the sound of the Jedi starfighters, just no dialogue, nothing. Just this Anakin and Obi-Wan's Jedi starfighters perfectly in sync, flying over the greatest space battle that we've ever seen in Star Wars history, unfolding, is just something that you've never seen before. Even from the sound, like I can sit here and just feel the reverberations from the theater, or anytime I watch it on a great sound system, of that high-pitched one of the Jedi starfighters, the insanely ridiculous broadside battles between the Venator class, New Republic cruisers and the Separatist cruisers, just going at it at point-blank range like ships of the line, which is absolutely absurd in space, and just pummeling each other and falling apart and falling down into the atmosphere is just epic. And then we get to see, the clones fighting, the empathy that Anakin has for the clones that was built up in the Clone Wars, which I think the Clone Wars are actually very pivotal in order to really understand Anakin and to really feel his fall to the dark side, his relationship with Ahsoka during the Clone Wars. I wish that had kind of been established there, but even without that, it really adds to it. And you just feel everything in that opening sequence, up to the point where they duel against Palpatine. They're on Grievous's flagship, and it falls apart, starts burning up in the atmosphere, and they have to crash land on Coruscant, and they have another happy landing. And It's fantastic. It really is. So I really thank you, Dr. John Hyde, and I appreciate the compliment. I miss talking to a lot of you guys about this kind of stuff too. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about pop culture going forward, these things, because I know you guys always like those takes that I had, and I did enjoy, discussing a lot of the nerd takes. And I know some of my takes are a little bit different than some of the other guys that you may see out there, and I do have a background of knowledge that honestly most people don't have. Like, I think, I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but not many people have read the expanded universe and read all of the Legends series now, as they're called. And so I really just have a deep love for Star Wars and the lore, especially everything that happened. So to see Disney squander the franchise, destroy it. And to me, Star Wars has been dead for years. I don't have Disney Plus. I won't watch Andor. I won't do any of that. And I was never in this for... I don't do this as a livelihood. As much as it would be great if YouTube became a livelihood, I have a day job. I do this for fun. I want to educate people. I wanted to give people a voice, and now this is just what I do on the side. So I appreciate every time that you guys give a super chat or a membership. It's awesome. It'd be great if I could do this for a living, but that's not why I started this. I have a passion for it. And so, I mean, I'll run there with any of these guys like Eckhart's Ladder, Star Wars Theory, even Kindle, when it comes to, knowledge of Star Wars lore and ships and everything like that. I've got, if you go into the garage right now, there is a clone trooper gunship that's this big in there. Commander N is there with me with a lot of this stuff. We've got the arena from Geonosis. We've got clone ships. We've got multiple Jedi Starfighter toys, all this stuff he's got packed in there and all this stuff. So this is something that we've lived and breathed. And I just remember getting all the expanded universe books, reading them all, having them all on audiobook and listening to them over the years, and being so excited when the sequel trilogies were going to be released. And then after watching episode 7, just kind of like, oh man, I don't know about this. Like, this is just A New Hope all over again. I did like the characters at the time. I'm not going to lie. I think that, see, I don't even remember all their names because I don't give a shit about Star Wars, Disney Star Wars. But I thought I thought Finn, Poe, and even Rey was okay in episode 7. I was like, okay, I could see how these characters, especially I liked the bromance that between Finn and Poe. I thought they had good chemistry. I was like, okay, I think this will be good. I could see where these guys go. And Rey is like, whatever. She's a Mary Sue, but she's all right. It's fine. And then to see them go from a mediocre movie, which is episode 7, which we can be honest, it was mediocre even at the time. Even if we liked it, we could be like, okay, it's not the best, but I could see the foundation here. Not very creative. And then have them utterly annihilate the series with episode 8. Travesty, absolute travesty, episode 8. The only good thing that happened in episode 8, and even then, it was just a caricature and an imitation of the Battle of Hoth, was the final battle there with their stupid hovercraft things against the walkers and all that stuff. I think the only part of that I really liked, and it was just because they nostalgia baited it at the time, was when Rey and Chewbacca were flying on the Millennium Falcon and they crashed through that crystal cave with the First Order TIE fighters chasing after them, and then the asteroid theme from episode 5 starts playing. And I was just like, all right, I like this. I like this part. That was like the only snippet, that like 30 seconds of the movie was like, all right, I give him credit for this. That little snippet was the only Star Wars in that entire movie, as far as I'm concerned. Everything else was a bastardization and a deconstruction on what Star Wars is, which is exactly what Kathleen Kennedy and her ilk wanted to achieve there, in the destruction and feminization of Star Wars utterly. And then obviously episode 9 is just a shit show because they tried to redeem themselves with the Empire Reborn, which even in the expanded universe novels, Palpatine's return a couple of times was a little bit like, you've got the Sunbreaker and we've got the Eclipse Star Destroyer and all this stuff on Bastion. I mean, they tried to do it, and it's just like, no, man, if you're not going to go all the way here and go full Legends, like, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. So, I mean, there are so many cool things that they just could have brought. Oh, the Disney Star Wars. I mean, can you imagine had they gone all in and they tried to incorporate, I mean, they could have gone 2 more trilogies if they had done this right. I really legitimately think that they could have briefly dealt with the Imperial Remnant, and Thrawn in some ways. I mean, they could have gone all in with Thrawn, right? And made it not what they're doing with Ahsoka with Thrawn, which is, no, it's not the same. I love how Thrawn looks with Disney, but Rebels was enjoyable for me, but it was still mediocre in the sense of this is not how Thrawn is supposed to be introduced here. This is not how this is supposed to work. So they could have done a Thrawn trilogy, and I think they could have gone further. Maybe what they could have done is, gone to the Yuzon Vong. Talk about Outward, the Outward Bound mission that was supposed to leave the galaxy, and it ends up that ship got destroyed before it could break through the barrier of the force that supposedly surrounds the Star Wars galaxy that's prevented, foreign adversaries from coming in, and then deal with, the rise of the Yuzon Vong and the fact that Palpatine was creating these super weapons because he knew that there was an extra galactic threat. So he needed weapons like the Death Star, the Sun Crusher, and did he build the Sun Crusher? I don't remember if that was a Kyle Katarn thing or not. Sorry, that one I don't remember. But the Eclipse Star Destroyer and all these other weapons, and dealing with all that stuff to try to prevent the Yuzon Vong invasion. And it just would have brought a totally different light into all of that. And the Yuzon Vong are just such a terrifying and powerful enemy. They can't be seen by the Force. Lightsabers can't really cut through them. They've got their amphistaffs that are alive and become snakes. They essentially look like demons with like their with like skull flesh faces on here, and they're utterly terrifying. And they use biological ships and weapons and terraform Coruscant and change its orbit. They kill trillions of people in that war. Like tons of Jedi die. One of Anakin's, one of Luke and Leia's kids gets killed. And that's what causes, Jason Solo to fall off the deep end and eventually fall to the dark side and become Darth Caedus later on. And that could have been your second trilogy that Disney could have done after the Yuzon Vong, and talk about the repercussions from that. And you could have had like a rated R Star Wars fighting against the Yuzon Vong. Can you at least PG-13? I get it. They're not going to make it rated R. They want the kids to watch it, but maybe the Yuzon Vong would have given kids nightmares. But damn, they are freaking badass. So if you guys don't know who the Yuzon Vong are or anything like that, you've got to read that series. I forgot whether it was the New Jedi Order series or if that was the one that came afterwards, but it was incredible. And then even the quest that Luke goes on with Ben, his son, to try to find other Force users throughout the galaxy, eventually leading to the discovery of Abeloth, who is like one of the most powerful dark side, like the most powerful dark side being ever, which they hinted at with the father, the daughter, and the son in the Clone Wars cartoon series, leading to that, and the Abeloth was like their mother. Oh man, like all this stuff it's incredible. They had so many resources that they could tap into that were better than anything they could have come up with, and they could have elaborated a little bit more, and to bring all that to the screen would have been absolutely incredible. And I think that everything would have changed, and we would be praising Disney right now, but that's not what they did. They wanted to take a cash cow, and they wanted to throw the message behind it. And that's really what Hollywood does, right? For years now, they've just taken the franchises that we love, and at first, we could say that it was just corporate malfeasance, right? It's just corporations buying IPs that they have no idea what they're doing with just to try to make money on. and they throw them into the ground, and that's it. They kind of squander it. Some people would probably argue that that's what happened with Transformers and some of the movies that that Jerry Bruckheimer made, even though I love the first Transformers movie, and even the second one are a lot of fun. The live action ones. I didn't grow up watching, I never had the touch. Sorry, I did not grow up watching Transformers when I was a kid. I did watch He-Man and Thundercats. And I grew up in Japan too for a couple of years. So I ended up watching Ultraman and the Japanese Power Rangers, which are awesome. So that was really my thing. And that's another story altogether. So if you want to talk about kaijus and all this crazy stuff, like that's really what I grew up on. I bet I've still got some Ultraman action figures in some storage unit somewhere from my time being a kid in Japan. Like I was in when I was like 4 to 6 years old. So that's where I cut my teeth with that stuff. But Inspector Gadget too. Inspector Gadget. I know that's not Japanese or any of this stuff, but man, I don't know why that popped into my head. Inspector Gadget. That theme song is great. But so many things that were untapped that they could have used, so many awesome vehicles as well. And we're starting to see them bust out with that stuff too, like the E-Wings and the K-Wings and all that. And so you see Star Wars like throw those little bones out there, even stupid shit like giving the Mandalorian a Naboo starfighter, which makes no sense for what he is. They blew up his ship. I mean, it gets to the point where subverting, yes, okay. The Empire winning in episode 5, that's subverting expectations. That's how you subvert expectations properly. But I understand that some things are tropes and you don't want to copy them sometimes, but if you're just doing it for shock value and it doesn't actually add to the story or improve it in any way, then it's just bullshit. That's really what it is. And that's what a lot of these people in Disney, in DC and Marvel have been trying to push. They have these franchises, and I think that a lot of these people either grew up and they were the people that made fun of us for being geeks and nerds growing up and loving these movies, or they were on the outside looking in and now they're a bunch of posers and they're jealous that they weren't on the bandwagon and now they want to steal it for themselves and co-opt it, make it their own, and then, piss all over them and disrespect these franchises or push their message to try to brainwash people, all of the above, out of spite and try to make these things their own. They're not. You're caretakers. If you want to create your own woke, stupid franchise, you can go ahead and do that, but they don't, because they know that there's no money in that. They know nobody's going to watch it. They know that even their own stupid woke mob doesn't watch this bullshit. They don't buy the toys. They don't buy the collector's edition movies. They don't go to shows or Comic-Cons or anything like that. They don't. They're a bunch of freaking losers and posers that are jealous of the childhoods that they had, and they want to co-opt them and destroy everything because they themselves are miserable and pathetic and don't appreciate their own what they've been given. And that's what they are. They're just spoiled children that want to destroy everything. And then they accuse us of being the same thing. It's bullshit. So that's what I have to say about that. If you want more Star Wars discussions or anything like that, I mean, I don't know. If you guys ever want me to go on different shows or anything, let people know. I'm always willing to jump on and talk about this stuff because I really enjoy it and I've got a pretty good knowledge of it. But there we go. Somehow 2 hours has flown by. I didn't even ask people to smash the like button or subscribe to the channel. Totally forgot about that. Barely shared my screen. You're just watching my face ranting the entire time. I appreciate all of you. I need to talk more about all these classic movies I'm watching as well. So we'll figure it out. Once I get settled back into Puerto Rico, I do have a lot of plans of expanding the things that I'm doing here and talk about all of these stories. We got to go back and play Oblivion. I have to finish Adamfall this week. So we'll probably leave Oblivion off to the wayside for a little bit. Finish Adamfall, get that out of the way. I got to finish Indiana Jones at some point too, man. That game ended up being awesome. And then I want to play this Expedition 33, which everybody seems to say is amazing and could be game of the year. So I downloaded that. Got to play Warhammer. Got to play RoboCop. My Steam library is blowing up. I've got Tempest Rising as well. If you guys ever want to see some old school RTS action. Maybe Commander and I can play some Command and Conquer, like Red Alert 2 and Red Alert 3, and stream it someday just for old time's sake. So smash the like button. It's free and it puts hair on Rolo's chest. I got plenty of it. I'm not going to flash everybody here, but yeah, I'll get a little bit more and become even more grizzled than I've ever been. So for every hair that we grow, well, my voice is normally, if I speak in my normal voice, it ends up being pretty deep and gravelly, almost like Christian Bale's Batman. So I usually don't try to speak this way because it's sometimes difficult for people to understand. But for each like that you get, the voice will get deeper, and it'll go towards my real actual voice, which is a reverberation. I remember I used to get in trouble in school when I would speak in my real voice. It was myself and this dude named Andrew. And he and I guess like our balls dropped in middle school before everybody else. And so we had these deep booming voices. And we used to drive our English teacher in 7th grade crazy because she'd just hear the reverberation of that like grizzled bass line. And then she'd be like, Andrew, and be like, it wasn't me. And she'd be like, Rolando. And it's like, it wasn't me. And then it'd just drive her crazy. So Jesse, you like Red Alert? Red Alert is amazing. It is awesome stuff. So we'll keep talking about all this stuff. I am Rolo the Puerto Rican Pistolero. I will be back next week for more Rolo's Rants. We're going to talk about guns. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about pop culture and all the things that we love and we're passionate about. I will be back with some gaming streams this week. We'll be back for Fortnite Friday. If you didn't check out last Friday's stream, check it out. It was a great one, especially that final match. And I will be in Miami for the next 3 or so weeks, and then it'll be back to Puerto Rico for a while and setting up a more permanent studio there and taking some of this stuff so you guys will have some of the same visual and audio quality that you expect from me. So thank you all for hanging out this Sunday evening. Have a wonderful start to your week. Good luck. God bless you all. Have a wonderful night. Always a pleasure. Take care.